So hello, my name's Rob and this is Cat Rabbit Scale Model Studios, and recently I got my hands on a box of eliminators. Fantastic, love them, but I really like these camo patterns on the back, so I've come up with a tutorial on how to do them really easily. These are great fun. I love doing stuff like this. This is my absolute cream of crop stuff to do. It looks great, it's easy to achieve, it's a little bit time consuming, but it really does elevate your models to an absolutely different level. Before I get started, I'll leave all information in the description below. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Now let's get started. So I've got this eliminator that I've been working on. The first thing I have done is I have primed the area that I want to paint in accordance to the lightest colour that I'm going to use, in this case a cream colour, so I've gone for a cream primer. This was Ossified Earth by Colourforge, really lovely sprays. If you want to get your hands on any, link in the description below. Really lovely paints to work with. But what we need to do is we need to choose our colours first. Now I always go by a rule of 4, and the first one I'm going to use is Screaming Skull. This is going to be a lovely bright colour. Baylor Brown, which is like a dirty sandy yellow. Mournfang Brown, this is like a nice mid-tone brown. And Rhinox Hide, which will be my darkest accent. Now obviously I'm going to do a desert base because it matches the bases on my miniatures, and obviously it's only natural for them to have camo of the area they're in. I can't tell you what paints to use. You can get some really cool effects with a light, a mid-tone, a dark, and then like a really odd colour like a red or an orange. Depends what you're going for. I would strongly recommend looking online for inspiration, type in urban camo, things like that. I'm not going to do geographical stuff because that is just out there. It's really time consuming. But what I am going to do is show you how I'm going to do this. Now the first thing I need to do is Screaming Skull as a base coat. I could skip this step because Ossified Earth is a really nice colour. However, I use Screaming Skull on my base, so I wanted to start with that. I am also going to be using a wet palette in order to make sure my paints are nice and thin. The most important thing at this stage is getting a really nice, strong, even base coat. This took me about 3 or 4 coats of paint. Just sit back, put a movie on. If you're going to do all these together, fantastic, production line them. But after about 4 coats, we've got a really nice finish. Really good. That's what we want. That's the best starting thing, because that's actually going to be our very first colour done. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to jump to Mournfang Brown. Now, you might instantly think I'd do my next lighter colour and lay them over. No, I work on a 2-step forward, 1-step back technique, and I'll show you why when we come to it later in the video, but there's a really good reason why I do things this way. With this, you will need to do a couple of coats. Once again, I do have a wet palette that I do use. Just take your time with it. What I'm going to talk about now is giving a paint a function, almost like a permission. So when it comes to camo, what I like to do is I like to give every layer a permission that they're allowed to do. So this one is my first layer, and the permission I'm going to give it, the function I'm going to give this layer, is that it has to be joined to another blob of my Mournfang Brown. So they always have to be connected in some way. Now, it might sound strange that you're allowing paint to do something, but trust me, and you'll see what I mean now. As you can see, the function I've given it is it always had to be connected. So I ended up with these really cool oblong blobs of paint. Now this helps because sometimes when you overthink it, you can be a bit too uniform, and we don't want that here. So next I'm going to come with Baylor Brown, and the permission I'm going to give that is that it always has to be between 2 bits of Mournfang Brown. Once again, you'll see what I mean here as I start to paint this on. Doing things this way, you end up with some really unique patterns. And this is where, if you are going to do things like geographical patterns and shapes and things like that, it's knowing what colour serves what function. So if you're doing like greys and reds and stuff like that, your reds are your triangles, your greys are squares, and you can kind of mix and match it up. But I find just having those little permissions for these colours and these little things that they can and can't do not only that, it does make the painting a bit more fun, because you're like, oh, well, I can't put it there because it won't match up. It's almost like a game of noughts and crosses with yourself. But it is great fun to do. So that's what I did with my Balor brown. It was only allowed to be between 2 bits of Mournfang brown. So that's where we are now, and as you can see, the pattern's really starting to take shape, and in actual fact there's not really much more to do. However, if you look just here, you can see there's a slight bit of bleed through where, you know, we are painting incredibly tiny little blobs here that I've just gone onto the Mournfang brown. Now the reason why I do things 2 steps forward, 1 step back is because now I can actually tidy up the edges of my Mournfang brown and get a really, really nice sharp kind of finish on them, and it doesn't look a little bit patchy or anything like that. So that's the reason why I do things this way. It's easier to cover up a lighter paint with a darker colour as opposed to the other way around. So there we go, we are all tidied up. I'm really, really happy with how everything's looking. And then lastly, we can move on to the very last colour, which for me is going to be Rhinox Hide. Once again, this paint, I'm going to give it its own permission, its own function. And what I'm going to do here is I'm only going to let it, every time I paint this in, it has to start between 2 colours. It doesn't matter where it finishes, but a piece of it has to start between the Balor and the Mournfang brown. So as you can see, like here, I can come out, but I have to make sure that it starts between 2 colours. Once again, I always find that paint a few bits in, take a step back, look at your miniature, and just work out where it maybe needs a little bit more dark or a little bit more of your other colours that you're using. But once again, that's the permission that I've given this paint, and ultimately that's the scheme and the plan for camo like this in general. And you can get some really fantastic looking camo patterns when you do things this way. So there it is, all done. That's effectively the colour scheme. Whether you're applying this to a flat surface, a cape, doesn't matter. It's exactly the same. It's applied exactly the same every single time. I'm just going to run some Seraphim Sepia into some of the recesses and the cape just to finish it off, but that's really it. Once again, I love doing stuff like this. It's so much fun. It's really intricate, get your words out, but I do definitely think it's worth it. So look, if you like this video, do let me know in the comments below, or if you've got another way of doing it, I'd love to hear it. That's it from me in this one. I'll leave you with the money shots now. Thanks again, God bless, and take care.